My name is Elias Thompson, and I'm 46 years old. What I'm about to share may sound unbelievable, but I assure you, it's the absolute truth. It happened on February 29th, 2024, a leap year, a day that irrevocably changed my life. I work as a beekeeper, and my daily routine revolves around caring for my buzzing colonies and harvesting their golden honey. That morning was no different. I woke early, enjoyed my usual breakfast of toast drizzled with honey from my own bees, and slipped into my protective beekeeper suit to inspect the hives. Everything seemed normal at first. The bees darted to and fro, their hum creating a familiar symphony of life. But as I approached one of the hives, I noticed something unusual. The sound coming from it wasn't the harmonious buzz I was accustomed to. It was frantic, almost as if the hive itself were crying out for help. I leaned in to investigate and saw the cause of the distress. A large, aggressive hornet was trying to force its way inside. Hornets are deadly predators for bees. They can decimate an entire hive within hours. Without thinking, I acted. I reached out, barehanded, to grab the intruder. It was a reckless decision, one that I would soon regret. The hornet turned on me instantly, stinging my hand with a sharp, fiery pain. It felt as if a red-hot needle had pierced my skin. I recoiled, shaking my hand as the searing sensation spread. I'd been stung before, so I didn't think much of it initially. I removed my suit and headed back toward the house, intending to apply some ice and move on with my day. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. As I walked, my hand began to swell at an alarming rate, and my chest grew tight. Each breath became more difficult than the last. By the time I reached the porch, I was gasping for air, clutching my throat as an invisible vice seemed to squeeze it shut. My vision blurred, and the world tilted beneath me. I stumbled through the doorway and collapsed to the floor. Darkness enveloped me, and everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was floating. I could see my lifeless form sprawled on the floor, my face pale and still, while my wife, Beatrice, ran into the room, screaming my name. She dropped to her knees beside me, shaking me and pleading for me to wake up. I wanted to tell her I was okay, to reassure her, but I couldn't. My words, my presence, they were out of reach. I could only watch. Beatrice grabbed the phone, her voice trembling as she called 911. Tears streamed down her face as she explained the situation to the operator, then immediately began performing CPR. Her hands pressed rhythmically on my chest, and she leaned in to breathe air into my lungs. It was surreal watching her fight so hard to save me, knowing I was right there but powerless to let her know. Then, everything started to change. The room dimmed as though someone were lowering the lights. Beatrice, the paramedics who arrived moments later, and my motionless body all began to fade into the background. I was being pulled away, gently but inexorably, through what I can only describe as a dark tunnel. At first, it was disorienting, even frightening. The darkness seemed endless, and I felt utterly alone. But then, far in the distance, I saw a light. It started as a pinprick, faint and distant, but it grew steadily brighter as I moved, or was drawn, toward it. The closer I got, the more I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The fear and pain that had gripped me moments earlier melted away. By the time I reached the light, I felt lighter than air, unburdened by anything earthly. When I emerged from the tunnel, I was somewhere entirely different, a place beyond words. The colors around me were unlike anything I had ever seen, vivid and radiant in ways that defied logic. The grass beneath me glowed softly, and as the wind passed through it, it seemed to hum a gentle melody. Surrounding me was a field of flowers, each petal shimmering with an ethereal brilliance. In the distance stood a city unlike any on earth. Its structures gleamed like gold and crystal, radiating light that seemed to come from within. Then I saw them. Figures emerged from the horizon, walking toward me. My heart leaped as I recognized them. My grandfather, who had passed when I was a child, smiled warmly at me. My old dog, Rusty, bounded through the grass, wagging his tail with unrestrained joy. Even Mrs. Pembroke, my beloved third-grade teacher, was there, her face lit with a kindness that hadn't faded with time. They all looked young, vibrant, and filled with an unearthly peace. As I stepped forward, eager to reach them, a voice stopped me. It was unlike any voice I had ever heard, melodic, harmonious, and resonating in every part of my being. "Ezekiel," it said, "welcome, but it's not your time yet." I froze, torn between the overwhelming desire to stay in this place of perfect love and the gentle authority of the voice. "You have more to do," it continued. The words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Before I could respond, the scene around me began to shift. The glowing field blurred, the colors dimming until all that remained was the tunnel. This time, I was moving in reverse, pulled back toward the darkness. I fought against it, desperate to hold on to the peace and love I had felt. But the pull was too strong, and with a sudden jolt, I was back. Pain slammed into me like a freight train. My chest heaved as I gasped for air, every breath searing my throat. I opened my eyes to see Beatrice's tear-streaked face hovering above me. Relief flooded her expression as one of the paramedics exclaimed, "He's back." They lifted me onto a stretcher, their voices a blur as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Over the next few days, as I recovered in the hospital, the memory of what I had experienced lingered, vivid and unshakable. I couldn't bring myself to talk about it at first. It felt too sacred, too surreal. But one evening, as Beatrice sat beside me, holding my hand, I finally said, "Honey, there's something I need to tell you." I recounted everything, the tunnel, the light, the field of flowers, and the voice that told me it wasn't my time. Beatrice listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. When I finished, she squeezed my hand and said, "Zeke, I believe you, and I'm so glad you came back." Since that day, I've felt a renewed sense of purpose. I now live each moment with gratitude, cherishing the life I nearly lost. I've shared my story with others, hoping it might inspire them to seek deeper meaning in their own lives. The light I saw was real, more real than anything I've ever experienced, and it gave me a glimpse of something greater, something eternal. I'll spend the rest of my life sharing that truth, so others can find their way to the peace and love that await us all.